5 years after breaking up, I got a call from an unknown number. Can we try again? Jackson's voice was still as clear as ever. But before I could respond, the child in my arms asked, "Mom, is this a call from Dad?" There was silence on the other end for a long time before I heard a self-deprecating laugh. "I lost a game on a show. Don't take it seriously. Sorry for disturbing you." The topic of Jackson crying trended all day. When Karina came to pick up the child in the evening, she said, "I saw the trending topic. Are you okay? Do you want to explain things to him?" I forced a smile and said, "I'm fine, don't worry." As they left, Betty reluctantly waved goodbye, saying, "Mom, I want to come over and play tomorrow." "You have school tomorrow. You can't just think about playing. And remember, call her Aunt Anne, not Mom." "Everyone has only one mother," Karina gently corrected her, giving me an apologetic glance. Betty's mom tragically passed away in a car accident shortly after her birth, leaving her with no memories of her mother. Karina showed her their wedding photos. Since then, Betty's image of her mom became that of a beautiful woman, and she called any pretty lady Mom. Those of us who knew the situation couldn't bear to correct her. But I never expected this misunderstanding to happen today. After work, Lily showed up at my place with fried chicken and beer. Her first words were, "I saw the trending topic. Are you okay? Do you want to explain things to him?" She and Karina really are siblings, their words are identical. I curled up on the sofa, watching her set everything on the coffee table. Finally, I took the beer she handed me and downed a big gulp. The cold liquid flowed down, clearing my cloudy thoughts. My long lashes lowered, hiding the emotions in my eyes. What's the point of explaining? I can't give him the answer he wants anymore. "Did you see the clip of his live show?" Lily asked, opening another can and clinking it with mine. I shook my head. Betty was too noisy. I didn't have time to watch the whole video, let alone know what happened. Maybe I was afraid to see it too. Lily insisted, "You should watch it." She pulled up the trending video and handed me her phone. The guests were playing the classic game of Truth or Dare. Previous rounds of Truth had been brutal, so when it was Jackson's turn, he chose Dare. His Dare card read, "Call your first love to say hi." Once everyone saw the card, the room went wild. Jackson had been in the industry for 6 years, winning countless prestigious awards and gaining fame. Yet despite being such a hot star, he had no scandals and kept a professional distance from women both on and off camera. He was so reserved that everyone was curious about his first love. Or more accurately, if he ever even dated. Upon seeing the words "first love," Jackson's relaxed smile froze, and his gaze darkened. Another guest chimed in to help him out. Jackson's almost 30, his first love was probably ages ago. He wouldn't have her contact info. Let's switch it up. The rest agreed readily. But Jackson, regaining his composure, reached out for his phone from the crew. "Can I have my phone, please?" "Thanks." Everyone thought it was normal for adults to keep an ex's number after breaking up, even if it was just to say hi. Yet their hearts raced in sync with each ring, gossiping instincts buzzing. Finally, just before the call would have automatically ended, I picked up, "Hello?" At that moment, I assumed it was just another random delivery or scam call. I had no idea Jackson, his free hand clenched tight, couldn't get a word out. The setting was tense, everyone riveted to their phones, daring not to breathe. The air felt frozen. "No one there, I'm hanging up." Just as I was about to hang up, he blurted out, "Can we try again?" The familiarity of the voice made it feel like a dream. Because it sounded like 1,000 dreams I've had. Before I could respond, Betty's soft voice had already cut through. "Mom, is this a call from Dad?" On the other end, even his breathing seemed to cease. After a pause, he spoke again, "Losing a game on a show." "It's nothing. Sorry to bother you." His voice trembled, full of irony. That was the end of my perspective. Little did I know that when the call ended, Jackson's eyes turned red. The video concluded, and Lily pulled up another post for me. "I'm a staff member from today's live show," it read. "Here's some gossip." After the call, Jackson went to his tent and cried his heart out. None of us could calm him. Honestly, it's like his first love never left his mind, which is why he's been so disciplined all these years, even though she now has a child. It's heart-wrenching, even if you're a celebrity. Here's proof of my job ID corner to show I'm from the crew. Lily placed her phone aside. All he had to do was say hi, but he asked if you could get back together. Seems like he really hasn't gotten over you. She paused, then added, "Aren't you curious how he got your number?" "When we broke up, I changed my number and cut all ties." Lily sighed. "I heard he was asking around for your contact back then. Even asked me. I thought he'd reach out then, but he waited till now to call. If he hadn't gotten that dare card, he might have never pressed those numbers. Maybe he'd just keep staring at them alone night after night. Yet, Lily, I can't accept his love anymore, not since the moment I gave up on him." These thoughts, I only dare to share with Lily. Lily wasn't buying it. In love, there's no such thing as being worthy or not. She looked at me, seriously. "You used to be a wealthy little princess, right? But you didn't mind him being broke. You just need to ask yourself, have you really moved on from him?" I couldn't answer that, so I just kept downing drinks to numb myself. I didn't even have the courage to say it out loud. Now, he's like a bright, shining star, and we just aren't in the same world anymore. Lily sighed. "Come on, let's drink our hearts out." Empty bottles piled up, and our brains got foggier. Our words became more random. Until Lily completely passed out on the carpet, falling into a deep sleep. I stared at my phone nearby, feeling a sudden urge to do something. I regretted it as soon as it rang twice, but my fingers just couldn't hit the end call button on the screen. In my panic, it was already picked up on the other end. Neither of us spoke first. For a moment, the receiver only had our chaotic breathing. I don't know how long it was, but I couldn't hold back, and with a sob, I asked, "Do your words from today still count?" Jackson said sarcastically, "And, no matter how spineless I am, I won't be someone's marriage intruder." His words snapped both of us out of it. The call ended hastily. All night, I was buried in a mess of dreams. A snowy night, Jackson stood on the steps, looking down at me coldly and distantly, and, "Stop wasting your time, I'll never like you." Later, on a sycamore-lined road full of golden leaves, he gently held me close, leaning down to whisper in my ear, and, "I'll love you forever." When I woke up, the room felt clammy. Past sweetness turned into sharp daggers cutting through every inch of me. I didn't die, but I was left in shreds. My mom called, inviting me over for dinner. Ben picked me up after work on his way. As I got into the passenger seat, he noticed the dark circles under my eyes. "Didn't sleep well? Something on your mind?" "No, slept great." I lied through my teeth. Ben didn't press further, changing the topic. "Feeling better yet? When are you planning to come to work?" I'd left my job a while ago and been resting at home. Ben had mentioned a few times about me helping out at his photography studio, just as a transition. Since I didn't have a better option for now, it seemed like a good idea. "Tomorrow? I'll pick you up in the morning then." "No need, I can take the subway myself. It's just 2 stops, no need to bother him." Mom waited at the door, looking a bit displeased seeing Ben with me, though she quickly hid it. Ben is her step-husband's son, 2 years older than me. She's never been thrilled about how close Ben and I got, fearing I might have feelings for him, or worse, he might for me. Leaving aside the step-sibling issue, Ben still doesn't meet her high standards for a potential son-in-law. I left the health supplements and fruits I brought on the living room coffee table, going to the kitchen door to greet Ben's dad working inside. Ben joined him in the kitchen while Mom pulled me onto the living room sofa, looking hesitant. I gently pulled my hand from hers. "Just say what you want." "Still talking to Jackson?" I frowned. "What are you trying to say?" She coughed lightly, maintaining her air, though her tone softened. if you two want to get back together, I won't stand in your way anymore. I couldn't help but laugh. Do I have that much audacity? Leaving him when he was down, and thinking he'd come back when he's made it big? Everyone has pride, especially someone as exceptional as him. I've hurt him once already. When we broke up, someone who was always so proud was sobbing uncontrollably, pleading for me not to leave, to give him 2 more years. But I was cold and didn't look back once. Now, what right do I have to return to him? Before my family went broke, my mom was all about arranging a marriage with a suitable match, looking down on Jackson from a normal family. What good is being good looking? Just an unknown actor. How many years does a woman's youth last? I turned a blind eye to your relationship during your studies, but it's been almost a year after graduation, can't drag this anymore. Break it off soon. Her nagging went in one ear and out the other. I didn't take her words seriously. I had faith in Jackson. With his looks and positive work ethic, he'd make it big, gain my mom's acceptance eventually. But I didn't foresee, seeing no change in me, she stopped bothering me and quietly messed with Jackson's career. His hard-won roles got snatched away last-minute time and again. At that time, Jackson was in shambles, filled with self-doubt. I was by his side but couldn't help him. Gotta admit, my mom was cunning. She wouldn't threaten Jackson to break up with me, wouldn't lower herself to talk terms with an actor. Instead, she showed me she could easily control our future, just like that. Me being stubborn would mean breaking Jackson's dreams. For him, I had to give up. She won. Mom seemed to forget what she did. It's not like that, I think he still has feelings for you. I sneered inside. Not everyone can handle things as she does. My dad paid off debts after our family went bankrupt, then died of depression, and she could just turn around and remarry her first love, start fresh without hesitation. I didn't want to discuss this any further, rushed through dinner, and left. Some things, you just can't go back to. Ben's photo studio is small, just 5 people, including Ben. He's creative and has strong ideas about photography. His work always captures the vibe, shows the model's best side, and he collaborates with trendy influencers, so he has a big following on social media. The studio's never short of clients. Since last year, even big celebrity teams have been reaching out to book sessions. My job involves shooting behind-the-scenes stuff, editing it, and posting on social platforms, managing the accounts. He's pretty good-looking, and his face alone can attract tons of fans. I barely need to do any work to manage him, yet his fan base just keeps growing. On the morning of the 5th day of my full-time job, I arrived at the studio, and Ben's assistant, Larry, looked up from his phone and said, "Bro, why don't you bring Ann along? Isn't she like your personal photographer?" Ben glanced at me with a complicated expression and insisted, "She stays behind." "Where are you guys going?" I was confused. Larry chuckled mysteriously, "We're heading to New York, to take some departure shots of a major star at an award ceremony in a couple of days. We're flying out tomorrow morning to set the scene in advance." Since they wanted the shots to be nearly perfect, they usually set up the scene based on the style right there, which was quite time-consuming and laborious. Everyone else had their tasks to finish, so Larry was the only one going with Ben. Naturally, he wanted an extra pair of hands. "Then I'll go with you guys too, more the merrier, right?" I teased Ben, "Boss, are you trying to save on a plane ticket by not taking me?" Larry chuckled, "My bro isn't that cheap. I think he's worried you'd get starstruck and mess up the work." Ben sighed and said, "Do you even know who this big star is?" "Who?" "Jackson." Now I understood why Ben looked at me that way earlier. I had been avoiding that name lately and barely watched any short videos to avoid seeing him. Hearing it again felt like ages had passed. Larry, unaware of the context, joked, "What, are you petrified?" Ben shot him a look and said, "Just book the tickets, and cut the chatter." Larry still wasn't satisfied, "You sure and can't tag along?" With just Ben and him, they might be working into the wee hours and still not finish. "I'll go." No way my personal stuff will get in the way of work. At 2 a.m., Larry collapsed on the hotel floor, looking dazed. Bro, I can't imagine how long we'd have taken if and hadn't come along. Had I known it'd be this exhausting, I'd have reconsidered being so diligent. I flopped down beside Larry, equally worn out. Jackson's team had sent over images of his outfit for tomorrow. A long dark brown leather coat paired with black dress pants. Based on that style, we set up a dark-themed background. We stuffed it with props like spider webs, a ton of work to arrange. Once everything was set, I was exhausted. I glanced at the printed outfit photo Ben had, wondering if such a long leather coat would look good. I totally underestimated Jackson's model physique in his face, which seemed crafted by a master artist. He wore a black shirt beneath, with the top 3 buttons undone, giving a teasing glimpse of his defined chest. Casual yet sexy. His hair was slicked back, leather coat unbuttoned, hands in his pockets, strolling into the spacious suite with the entourage. This suite was reserved for today's shoot setup. After years apart, he hadn't changed much, except he now carried an aura of unspoken power typical of a successful man. Wearing a cap and mask, camouflaged, I kept ducking behind Larry as I filmed. Jackson never spared me a glance. He didn't care who the photographer brought along. Larry leaned over, whispering, "Why are you all bundled up? Hot, isn't it? Anyone would think you're the celebrity." I shot him a look saying, "You wouldn't get it." Even if this was our first shoot together, Jackson and Ben were an unexpectedly good match, one an irresistible presence like a pro model, the other top-notch in his craft. They were surprisingly in sync. The shoot was nearly done, the completion was high, so was the output rate. As I realized Jackson hadn't recognized me and hadn't noticed me, I relaxed and started taking behind-the-scenes shots for Ben seriously. But as I took a step back for a long shot, something caught my foot, and I nearly fell, letting out a startled yelp. Everyone's eyes turned toward me instantly. I quickly bowed, apologizing, sorry, carry on. Ben, however, approached me with his camera, checking me over. "You okay?" I'm fine. I pushed him back. "Go on, keep working, ignore me." Jackson's on a tight schedule, limited time for photos as is. But when Ben lifted his camera again, Jackson stopped cooperating, grimacing, "Need a break." "God, you've got just a half hour left before leaving, what's with the breaks?" His manager Max pleaded. Lately, Jackson's been unexpectedly moody following a recent incident. Max had been hanging around, making sure nothing else went south, tending to him like royalty. Today seemed to find Jackson in a good mood, cooperative throughout. But now there was this sudden switch again, like magic was off. Max was beside himself. Jackson had already taken a seat on a sofa, leg over the other, tapping his knee lightly, his gaze flickering my way. I was doing my best to avoid eye contact. Ben covered him saying, "We got plenty already, taking a break isn't a problem. Even ending now, plenty of shots to work with." Ben sent Larry to get drinks for Jackson and his team. Ben didn't say it but I knew he thought my earlier stumble disrupted Jackson, so the drinks were a peace offering. Regardless, he's the client, after all, smooth them over. I said, "Let me. If they resume needing help, Larry should stay to assist you." Once I was out, I placed an order for pickup on the app. By the time I reached the tea shop, the drinks were almost ready. Carrying the packed drinks from the elevator, suddenly an arm shot out from the fire escape, pulling me in forcefully. I dropped the teas on the floor. Thankfully, the tops were sealed, so it didn't spill everywhere. In the dim corridor, a tall figure braced the wall on either side of me, trapping me there, leaning in close. In close proximity, I could feel the restrained but heavy breathing above me. "Anne, what do you mean? Got caught, huh?" I tried to push him away, but with mismatched strength, he didn't budge an inch. My hand accidentally brushed against his firm abs. My face flushed, and I quickly pulled my hand back. "What do you mean? You reject me but show up again. Are you trying to torture me? You just don't want me to be happy, do you? I turned my head away. Weren't you the one who rejected me? Turning the tables now, huh? He acted like he didn't hear and kept talking. Is that person Ben? What? I don't understand. He didn't care if I understood or not. His eyes were bloodshot with mixed emotions. He pulled down my mask, grabbed my chin, and leaned in to claim my breath. I turned red due to lack of oxygen. He wasn't planning on letting go. He bit my lower lip and whispered, "You came to me, so neither of us is getting off easy." For a moment, the world spun, making me dizzy. I felt like all my strength was drained. I leaned on his waist to barely stand, forced to endure his frenzied grasp. The air was filled with an ambiguous scent spreading around. After a long pause, he finally let me go, though clearly not satisfied. I gasped for air, my eyes involuntarily red. I braced my hand against his chest to keep some distance. Have you had enough? Gathering my energy, I broke free from his arms, my mind buzzing with chaos, just wanting to get away. My hand touched the emergency door handle when I heard a hoarse voice behind me say slowly, "If you get a divorce, I'll help raise the kid. I'll treat her like my own. I promise. As long as you're willing to leave him." By the end of his sentence, it was almost a plea. I was stunned, not believing those words came from someone so proud. My heart ached, feeling suffocated. I felt I should explain things to him. But before I could speak, hurried footsteps and anxious voices approached the door. Jackson had been out too long, and everyone was out looking for him. I quickly went to open the door, but he grabbed me from behind, refusing to let go, ignoring the situation. He seemed determined to hold on unless I agreed. Helplessly, I said, "Let's get out first, you need to head to the scene. If you delay, you'll be late. We'll talk after you're done with work. I'll wait for you." Really? Really? You promise not to fool me? I promise. Jackson refused my suggestion to leave separately and held my hand as we walked out of the fire escape together. Outside, everyone stared at our intertwined fingers, stunned. Then at our swollen lips, completely dumbfounded. What happened inside was obvious, the intensity could be imagined. Fortunately, they were all people we knew. Ben frowned slightly, his gaze intense. I quickly broke free from Jackson and tried to walk towards Ben and the others. Jackson grabbed me again, insisting, "You're coming with me." Ben stepped forward, pushing Jackson's hand away. "Mr. Jackson, she's my employee. She'll leave with me. Please remember your place." Ignoring him, Jackson kept his eyes on me. "You say it. Who are you leaving with?" "Boss, there's no time. We gotta go." Max hurried over, trying to drag Jackson away. Jackson stood firm, still stubbornly watching me. I had to say, "Send me your address after work and I'll come find you. You have to come." He hesitated but relented. "Okay. Don't go with anyone else." "Got it." At the elevator, he looked back, past everyone, at me. "And, if you lie to me, you're dead." Once they all left, Ben chuckled bitterly, softly saying, "Anne, I regret bringing you to New York." He realized in that moment, the light he tried to hold onto slipped away through his fingers. I couldn't take the flight back to Chicago initially planned for 8 p.m. Ben and Larry had to leave as scheduled. Before leaving, Larry couldn't help but ask, "Was it you? The ex that ditched Jackson, causing such a stir online?" I didn't say anything, but Larry understood. He glanced at our boss regretfully, hesitating. Finally, he just said, "Anne, sometimes you should consider those close to you." Ben coolly patted Larry's shoulder, "Let's go." Not looking back. Jackson's assistant upgraded my room, so I moved my few belongings to a new suite and curled up on the couch, mindlessly scrolling through short videos. As I scrolled, a live stream caught my eye. It was from today's awards ceremony, and the camera was focused on Jackson sitting in the front row. The live stream host was obviously a fan of Jackson's, never taking the camera off him. Curiosity got the best of me, and I clicked in. The comments were praising the host for having connections, not only getting inside but also streaming Jackson's gorgeous face for everyone. What's with Jackson today? He looks distracted and keeps checking his phone. If I didn't know he's been single forever, I'd think he's waiting for a girlfriend's text. Fans had no qualms about critiquing him. I noticed too. Something's up. He never has his phone out during events. If Jackson finds someone, we'd support him. Hope he moves past the shadow of his first love. I rolled my eyes. Why shadow? Then again, maybe it is a shadow. Not that I want to admit it. I remembered Jackson sending an address soon after he left. It was a high-end place downtown, with a door code that matched the date we officially got together. When he texted me, I was busy helping Larry pack. I glanced at it and pocketed my phone, forgetting to reply till now. I dug out our text thread and sent 2 words, got it. Returning to the live stream, I saw him looking less moody, a small smile forming, body language relaxed, as he texted. He seemed conflicted, editing his message repeatedly. After a moment, a new message popped up, should be done around 11. You can wait at my place. Another followed quickly, or I can come pick you up. A third, what are you up to right now? I was just about to respond when I saw a famous actress sit next to him, smiling brightly and trying to strike up a conversation. He gave her a polite smile, then subtly turned away, clearly trying to keep his distance and avoid any gossip. The live stream chat exploded instantly, the comments flying in faster and faster. Bella is so shameless. On that show, didn't she jokingly confess to Jackson, and he rejected her so gracefully? Her fans were bashing him for being ungrateful. So who's really the ungrateful one here? She made such a scene then, and now she has the nerve to cozy up to Jackson? Yeah, seriously, can she stay away from Jackson? It's so annoying. By the way, with Bella's current popularity, she shouldn't be sitting next to Jackson, right? Did she take someone else's seat? Jam's fan hesitantly said, I saw the seating chart. That seat belongs to my idol, Jam. The person in the middle of all this drama, though, had no idea what was going on. Bella noticed Jackson checking his phone every few seconds, and pretended to casually lean over to look. What are you looking at? So into it. Nothing. Jackson turned his phone face down, not letting her peek. Bella tried starting several conversations, but Jackson was polite and distant, clearly not interested in chatting. Spotting Jam approaching, Bella sheepishly excused herself on the pretense of looking for something and retreated a few rows back to her seat. Jam sat down next to Jackson, adjusting his suit with a hand over his mouth as he whispered, Your manager asked me to remind you, stop checking your phone so much. There are fans live streaming. Jackson looked up, scanning the room until his gaze settled on a girl holding up her phone. Seeing him glance her way, her hands shook with excitement. Jackson rubbed his temples helplessly. Why doesn't Max do something about this? Live streaming in the main venue? Jam shrugged. Heard she's some big shot's spoiled only daughter. Nothing you can do. Jackson turned his head, showing just a profile to the camera. Whatever, let them be. Finally, a new message popped up on his phone, and he quickly turned it over to read it, only to feel disappointed at finding spam. Jam, who had never seen Jackson looking so preoccupied and distracted, couldn't resist teasing, What, another breakup? What do you mean, another? Everybody knows about the drama on your live stream the other day. The childhood crush you've been pining over is now a mom. Talk about a heartbreak, right? Your first breakup must have been when she dumped you. Hey, word is you cried in secret, true or not? Jam grew more excited as he spoke. They'd been friends for years, so no topic was off limits. Jackson licked his dry lips. Nonsense. Jam laughed heartily. So the rumors weren't just rumors, huh? Jam, I'm dying to know who your first love is. If you ever end up swooping her away, introduce us. Jackson shot him a look. You had to admit, this friend knew him all too well. Another text came in, and without much hope, Jackson glanced down. Just one look and his heart started racing. I'm watching your live stream. He sat up straight, adjusting his hair, then asked Jam, how do I look right now? Jam, puzzled, looked at him strangely. Honestly? Very handsome. If I were a woman, I'd fall for that instantly. Satisfied with the answer, Jackson subtly turned back toward the camera, starting to make small adjustments. From propping his chin on his knuckles to casually unbuttoning his shirt further at the collar to stretching his neck. Jam was stunned, and he called him out, every move you make carries 100 little secrets like a peacock fanning its feathers. Are you okay? What's gotten into you? Jackson casually ran his middle finger along his brow and said smoothly, come on, say hi to your future sister-in-law. You're nuts. When the award ceremony officially started, the girl with the live stream was reluctantly called away, leaving Jackson significantly more relaxed, slouching back in his seat. This award ceremony wasn't anything significant. Almost every actor present was bound to receive a trophy, and Jackson was slated for the finale. He usually didn't care, figuring he'd just sit and clap when the camera panned. But today was different. He was restless, wishing for the person on stage to speed up their dull speeches. At last, at 11:30, he was free. He grabbed his phone, quickly texting as he made his way toward the vehicle. I'm done. Are you still at the hotel? I'll come pick you up. When I got Jackson's message, I had just unlocked the door to his place. I replied, I'm at your place. He responded instantly, okay, wait for me. I'll be quick. In the heart of the city, his place had a full-length window in the living room, offering a sweeping view of the city's bright lights. The place looked new, with few everyday items, almost like it wasn't lived in regularly. The decor was simple and cozy, with little touches everywhere that felt oddly familiar. Pushing open a door, I found a large room with a Steinway grand piano, and various musical instruments adorning the walls. One day, I'll design our wedding apartment myself. There will be a big floor-to-ceiling window in the living room, and we'll sit there chatting and drinking every night. The kitchen has to be open plan, so I can watch you cook. You look so handsome when you're concentrated on chopping. And a separate music room, with my piano and your guitar. I can teach you how to play the piano. The scenes from my teenage dreams aligned perfectly with what I saw now, and tears welled up in my eyes. Every word I'd ever said, he remembered and made come true. In the corner of the piano, my name was engraved. Nearby, traces of fingerprints lingered where they hadn't been cleaned off. Suddenly, it was as if I could see his gentle hand repeatedly passing over my name, and I wondered what he was thinking. As Jackson opened the door, a familiar piano melody filled the air, stopping him in his tracks. This was the scene he had long imagined, coming home to the sound of a familiar piano tune. After my family's bankruptcy, my expensive piano had been sold to pay debts, and it had been ages since I'd played. But thanks to years of practice, my fingers moved instinctively over the keys without conscious thought. Jackson quickly moved to the doorway, watching me as I kept playing, turning to smile with my lips curled. In his hands, he held a bouquet of flowers, making no sound to interrupt, his gaze lingering on me as if to capture this moment forever. I was playing Love Letter. The notes were bouncing around like they were asking, this time, are you going to choose regret or reunion? The cappuccino roses in Jackson's hand already gave me the answer. I told him before that the flower language of cappuccino roses is all about wanting to be with you from the moment we met, and it's also about the longing and anticipation of starting anew. And now, as the song ended, I wanted to tell him my choice too. Watching him look all nervous and expectant, I suddenly wanted to tease him like old times. Have you thought it through? Are you really gonna help me raise a kid? Without hesitation, he nodded firmly, your kid will be my kid from now on. I pretended to be all melancholic and finally spoke, but... He stared at me anxiously. I pulled out my phone and made a video call to Karina right in front of Jackson. He picked up quickly, saying, "Betty napped all afternoon, and she wouldn't sleep now. She was just talking about calling you to chat, and then you called." He then invited Betty over. Betty being awake at this hour was a pleasant surprise. Once she got the phone, she pressed her chubby face up close and excitedly shouted, "Mom! Mom! I miss you. When are you coming to play with me?" I looked up at Jackson. He seemed frozen on the spot, biting his lower lip, holding back with all his might. He looked a bit lost and was so pitiful. I said to him, "Come here." He hesitated, then stiffly lifted his legs, like he was walking on knives, his conscience and rationality battling within him. He felt like he was on the edge of breaking down. As he came closer, I pointed the camera at him. Betty blinked her big watery eyes and looked at him curiously. "Mom, who's this uncle? He's so handsome." Jackson clenched his fist, his veins popping. Seeing the kid, he suddenly realized the foolishness of his actions. He growled, "Enough, go away." That taut string inside him snapped, and the bouquet fell to the ground. Wasn't admitting defeat enough? Why torture him more? I sighed, looked at Betty seriously, and said, "Betty, what should you call me?" Betty pouted, glanced at her dad beside her, and reluctantly said, "Aunt Anne." Until the call ended, Jackson was in a confusing fog, taking a long time to gather his senses. Being pulled from hell back to heaven, he was in disbelief. I stood up, came face to face with him, and continued, "But what if I don't have any kids for you to take care of?" He suddenly pulled me into his arms, burying his face into my neck. I soon felt a wetness on my neck. Who would have thought that this tall, cold, handsome guy would actually be a big crybaby? I wrapped my arms around his waist, gently patting his back and feeling the bitterness well up. "I'm sorry. I should have told him that 5 years ago. It was wrong to leave him during his hardest times. I'm really sorry. And thank you. Thank you for still being willing to come to me, despite me pushing you away again and again. We're even now." "What? In college, I rejected you many times too. So, we're even." He regretted not snapping his brain back to reality when he was being so arrogant back then. He thought for a moment and said, "If only I'd taken you to the courthouse to get married the moment I met you. With legal ties, I couldn't just abandon him. But that's not how it works. You wouldn't want to?" He sounded a bit disappointed. I laughed, stood on tiptoe, and whispered near his ear, "Dummy, we were too young to legally wed back then." The next second, he tangled his fingers in my hair, cupped the back of my head, and planted a long, deep kiss. That night, he was like a wolf long starved, finally letting me go just before dawn. When I woke him up, the bed was empty, but I heard water running in the bathroom. I checked my phone. It was nearly noon. Thankfully, it was Saturday, and I didn't need to call in. Thinking of Ben, I realized just yesterday the change in his feelings towards me. Before, I thought he and I were like siblings, helping each other just felt natural. I used to think my mom was overthinking it, but now I see that I was the one underthinking it. Given the situation, pretending like everything is normal around him isn't fair. After some thought, I sent him my resignation letter. He called back, "You sure about this?" "Yeah." I spoke and realized my throat felt a bit hoarse. Jackson, wrapped in a towel, with wet hair, walked out of the bathroom and sat quietly beside me, watching me on the phone. I mouthed to him, "Why are you staring at me?" He didn't reply, just leaned in to peck my lips. I glared at him, "Quit it." Ben, on the other end, seemed to notice something and asked after a pause, "Is he really that great?" I couldn't help but remember once in college when Lily asked, after Jackson had refused me and I was bummed, and, "Sure, Jackson's amazing, but do you really need to hang on to him? Is he that great?" What did I say back then? "Oh," I said with bright eyes, "I'm not in it for all the extras that come with him. I like him just because he's Jackson, the one and only Jackson." The Jackson who seemed cold outside but warm at heart. Jackson, who built shelters for stray cats in winter, and who gently buried a dog that died in a car accident. His kindness was what really drew me in, way more than his looks. Lily shook her head. You're hopeless. Yeah, hopelessly wanting to stick by him forever. I vowed that once he was mine, I'd never let him go. I never thought I'd be the one to let go first. Coming back to the present, I looked at Jackson's still damp face and told Ben, yeah, he's that great. So great that after meeting him, I never saw anyone else. Ben went quiet and then laughed. Remember to come home for dinner. Mom's always talking about you. Will do, brother. After hanging up, Jackson scooped me out of the blankets. What are you doing? Helping you shower. He leaned close. Or do you think you're up for it? I wrapped my arms around his neck, blushing, and buried my face in his chest. Fine, help me then. After the shower, I felt like I was coming apart but let Jackson tuck me back into bed. As he tried to lean in again, I pulled the covers up to block my face and yelled at him, Jackson, enough is enough. But with my hoarse voice, it was anything but intimidating. He chuckled and pulled the blanket aside. Who said I wanted to continue? Or do you want to? I turned my face away. No, I don't. Aren't you going to work today? Aren't you leaving? Jackson had his hands on either side of me, making me look up at him. You're already kicking me out? He feigned being hurt. And you're really heartless. You don't cherish what you get. Even though I knew he was joking, my breath still caught. I murmured, I can't be that heartless. Back then, I secretly went to see you. Many times. Once, I even saw a woman follow him to his apartment building. She stopped him bitterly, asking, Jackson, she dumped you. Can't you move on and look at me? How am I not as good as her? He looked at her calmly, as if making a silent decision. I can't, and I won't. I never compare anyone to her. To me, she's the only answer. Not one of the multiple choices, not even a single choice. Later, my dad passed away and my mom got married and moved to Chicago, taking me along, which completely ended my desire to see him. Jackson lay next to me, propped up on an elbow, gently pulling me into his embrace. He also fell into memories. I went to look for you too. That was after his first lead role blew up, and offers came pouring in. He thought, finally, he was worthy enough to stand in front of me again. Finding my home, he discovered it had long since become an empty building. That's when he learned all that had happened to my family. Jackson stroked my exposed shoulder and softly said, I later found out from an old classmate that you went to Chicago. Since then, every time he had a break, he would take a short trip to Chicago. Unfortunately, the city was too big, and we never ran into each other. So, do you think we were meant to be or not? I tilted my head to look at him. He pinched my cheek with a determined look in his eyes. I believe more in making our own fate than relying on destiny. I poked his chin, teasingly humming, Aren't you the one who wanted me to leave yesterday? I did. He looked down at me. Who told you to trick me? Who tricked you? You misunderstood. So, it's my fault then? Who else but me? Fine, blame it on me. He held me tighter, and I smugly nuzzled against his neck. His voice suddenly turned hoarse. You better behave, or I can't promise you'll be getting out of bed today. At the end of the year, Lily came to New York to hang out with me. While shopping, we each bought a few lottery tickets to try our luck. She won $50, and I lost 10. I couldn't help but sigh, my luck is so bad. Lily nudged my arm, crossing her index fingers dramatically. Do you know how rare it is for one lovebird to meet another in this world? If you think you're unlucky, nobody's lucky. I nodded in agreement. Yeah, you're right. Having Jackson is already hitting the jackpot. Lily asked, for your first New Year's after getting back together, aren't you bummed he can't spend it with you? He has to attend a New Year's Eve show. I hugged Lily. Aren't I here with you? My dearest friend. Lily gave a meaningful smile, suddenly saying, "Anne, seeing you so happy now is awesome." She witnessed my lost days, understanding how hard-earned this current joy is. Her sudden sentimentality brought tears to my eyes. "Lily, you need to be happy too. For the rest of our lives, we both must be happy." After dinner, it started snowing lightly. Lily wanted to reminisce about our college days, so we headed back to campus. As night deepened, few were around. We strolled from the dining hall to the academic buildings and then to the dorms, always having endless stories. Before we knew it, we found ourselves in front of the boys' dorm. Looking at the familiar steps outside, I couldn't help but fall into memories. Jackson first rejected me in this place. Thinking back now, it just seemed funny, with no trace of the sadness back then. After smiling through the memories, I realized Lily was gone. Turning around nervously, I saw a tall man in a black coat, holding a black umbrella and a bouquet of orange roses, walking towards me through the wind and snow. I beamed. "What are you doing here?" I was about to walk toward him, but he stopped me. "Stay right there." I stopped in confusion. Jackson passed me, climbed the steps, and looked down from above. It felt just like 10 years ago, in the same scene and position. But this time, his eyes were no longer cold and impatient, they were overflowing with deep affection. He put down the umbrella, checked the time on his wrist, and said, "Anne, it's December 31st, 2014, 11:55 p.m. I froze. It was exactly when I had first confessed at his dorm door 10 years ago. Jackson said, "Could you repeat what you just said?" "I didn't hear you clearly." At that moment, I realized what he was doing. Fighting back tears, I mimicked my younger self, boldly smiling. "Jackson, I think I have a bit of a crush on you. Don't you want to like me back too?" He stared at me, misty-eyed, and slowly and firmly said, "Anne, I love you." The streetlights glowed dimly, casting soft shadows. Time seemed to stand still. At that moment, we could both see eternity in each other's eyes.